Bros 2022. I saw this first in 2022 at Odeon Covent Garden on Shaftesbury Avenue, and I really enjoyed it, and I reviewed it back then, and I'll include a link in the description. And I didn't cover the film in a lot of detail. This weekend I've seen it a second time, and what I liked about it was the way it is a really inclusive film. It really captures the zeitgeist of the queer movement as it is currently, the debates that go on. I think I understand it even better now in 2024 than I did in 2022, simply because during the last year I've been active on queer threads, and I've learnt a lot about LGBTQIA people on the platform and seen different perspectives, and I've learned more about myself, because a couple of years ago I wouldn't have described myself as demi-ace, demi-trans, because I didn't really know where my sexuality was. I had an idea that I might be asexual, but I didn't know at all about demi, and now I know that demi works for both identity and sexuality. So those two elements don't appear in the film, but I'm putting up the flag I've created for the demi squared, as I would call it, just because that's what I think I fit. The main characters in this film are Bobby Lieber, played by Billy Eichner, and Aaron Shepard, played by Luke McFarlane. There's a whole host of other characters from the queer world in particular. Bobby does a podcast called The 11th Brick, and it's based on the Stonewall riots, and the idea behind the 11th brick is that the first brick was probably thrown by a lesbian or a trans woman of colour. As he says right at the start of the film, there's no certainty about it, but he believes that the gay men got involved and one of them probably threw the 11th brick. It's just, I love it. I just love the whole concept. I did understand it a little bit 2 years ago, but I understand it a lot better now, having embedded myself a lot more in the LGBTQIA plus rights and understanding what has been discussed, all the discourse, that's the word, discourse, the LGBTQIA plus discourse. And there's still a lot to learn, still somewhere on that really steep learning curve, but a lot of the elements that happen throughout this film, like the debates that happen, because for instance it's Bisexual Awareness Week, and the bisexual on the committee is quite unhappy with the erasure he perceives is happening, and then there's the trans women of colour who are also upset about the lack of attention. All the different strands of LGBTQIA plus are jostling for some of the limelight because they need to be heard. Everyone needs to be heard, of course. And for many years, cis gay men have very much dominated the discourse. That's the idea. And so Bobby is relatively quiet in all this. I mean, he's doing his podcast, but he is listening, it seems, and I've been involved in work networks before I lost my job recently, and it wasn't as forceful or fighting. There was a lot of open-minded, open ears. Please, can we hear from people? Inclusivity. But I can imagine at times and in other places, especially where people are forthright, that doesn't always happen. And so that's why this is really believable. It's very much like I've seen on the sort of discussions that I've seen happen on threads. I love it. I love learning. And there's a lot of support between between people and threads, but some people don't understand. And of course, there's quite a lot of people who get blocked because they're intolerant, they're anti-LGBTQIA+, quite rightly blocked. I mean, that's the main thing to do when you get someone who is just plain rude and doesn't understand anything and tries to push their viewpoint on our discussions. That's the best way. Block, 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 blockety block. So the main story is Bobby meeting Aaron, and he meets him through this app called Zellweger. I think that's brilliant. It's all these little ideas, obviously based on Renée Zellweger. I perhaps don't get the nuance, the thinking behind it, but I've still got the humour. I felt it was funny. What happens is that Bobby is a little jaded and a little unhappy and a little angry, and he thinks of cis gay men as dumb. That's what he says. It's not true, I wouldn't say, but it's self-deprecating from his point of view. And being cis gay men have dominated the LGBTQIA plus discourse for so long, taking this step back to allow other people in means that he is being self-deprecating, and it is endearing. I really warmed to a lot of the characters in this film and really enjoyed following how the story develops. It's just great, I think. I'd love to actually know what other queer people from the different strands feel when they see this film, because I'm only looking at it from the Demi squared point of view, as I said, Demi Ace. So I'm only seeing it from one point of view. I'd love to know what other people think, but I found it really funny. Bobby and Aaron get together, they split up, they bounce together again. There's certain forces that push and pull them apart, so they get a bit alienated by the situations, and then they're back together. Oh yeah, my friend, a cis straight woman, I think she got slightly confused when Bobby referred to himself as a cis gay man. I didn't talk to her about it, but I think it might have been because cis is not that commonly used. When I do talk to her next, I'll explain that it simply means someone who's not trans, because I don't know if she realised that. I think she may have thought it was a tautology. I'm not sure. I'm going to check with her anyway. I'm going to score this 9 out of 10. It's a really humorous film. I loved it all the way through. I think on my first viewing, I started to get a bit lost towards the end because there's just so much to concentrate on. I found it easier watching it a second time, and I really enjoyed it. I'm very glad I watched it a second time. The whole way the film pans out, how everything works out in the end, and it's very positive. It's simply an observational comedy, very self-referential. There's this whole thing about it's a kind of world that's slightly different from real life, as in all these production companies, all these film studios are falling over each other to try and make queer themed films, and that isn't so much the case now. There's been so much pushback the last couple of years, and this whole backlash against LGBTQIA plus compared to 2022 even. I think there was a bit of it back then, but I think it's got worse since. So I loved it anyway. I'd really like to know your thoughts, especially if you're part of the queer community. Very interested in to hear your thoughts. Thanks for watching. Please like if you like this review. Thanks for subscribing if you subscribe. Hope to see you again soon. Bye for now.